Okay, second scripture is from Matthew 8:14 through 27. Jesus heals many people. When Jesus went to Peter's house, he saw that Peter's mother-in-law was sick in bed with a fever. Jesus touched her hand, and the fever left her. Then she stood up and began to serve Jesus. That evening, people brought to Jesus many who had demons. Jesus spoke, and the demons left them, and he healed all the sick. He did these things to bring about what Isaiah the prophet had said. He took our suffering on him and carried our diseases. People want to follow Jesus. When Jesus saw the crowd around him, he told his followers to go to the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to Jesus and said, "Teacher, I will follow you any place you go." Jesus said to him, "The foxes have holes to live in, and the birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to rest his head." Another man, one of Jesus' followers, said to him, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus told him, "Follow me, and let the people who are dead bury their own dead." Jesus calms the storm. Jesus got into a boat, and his followers went with him. A great storm arose on the lake, so that waves covered the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. His followers went to him and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we will drown." Jesus answered, "Why are you afraid? You don't have enough faith?" Then Jesus got up and gave a command to the wind and the waves, and it became completely calm. The men were amazed and said, "What kind of man is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him."
So, reading of God's word for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So, we are in the season of Lent, of course. We are coming close to the end of it, though. But Lent is a 40-day journey, not counting Sundays, from Ash Wednesday through Maundy Thursday. And we are in a series entitled, "Come Follow Me, a Disciple's Journey Through Lent." So let me reflect upon what we have heard so far. We talked about the baptism of Jesus. Then we follow Jesus out into the desert where he was tempted by the devil. Then we heard Jesus talk about the Beatitudes and being the salt and the light. Last week, we heard him talking about doing the right thing for the right reasons. And this week, we talk about when Jesus was saying what it costs to be a disciple. I specifically want to look at Matthew 8:19 to 22. And in fact, in my Bible, it says the cost of following Jesus is the header of this one. And I will acknowledge, thank you. I will acknowledge that I know for me and for others, Jesus seems a little callous here, doesn't he? Doesn't he seem a little insensitive? He kind of shut these guys down pretty quick. One guy says, "I'll follow you wherever you go, Jesus. Wherever you go, I'm going to follow you." And Jesus said, "Foxes have dens, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." In other words, you follow me, there's no guarantee you're even going to have a roof over your head. Then you have this other guy. "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." Reasonable request. Jesus tells him, "Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead." Wow. A little harsh. A little rough. But Jesus was saying, do I have your undivided attention? If you follow me, I'm all you've got. Are you ready to be a disciple? This is what it's going to require. Understand, this is what it means. And the point is not whether they decide to follow Jesus or not, but to define what a genuine discipleship is. Genuine discipleship consists of 1, being ready to suffer as Jesus suffered, and 2, determined to forsake everything else that stands in the way of following Jesus. Everything else. But again, looking at these guys, why can't Jesus wait? Why can't this guy who wants to follow Jesus follow in a few days? Why can't he just catch up later? But Jesus was again trying to get his finger on something. A finger on the pulse of what happens in this world nowadays too. It's a common issue for those who claim to follow Jesus. Something else always comes up that delays us from giving up everything to follow Jesus. Something always comes up. Because understand, if this man was going to allow one thing to delay him from following, there's no doubt that this man was going to let something else get in his way. Well, I buried my father, but now I got to do this. Then I got to do this. I'll catch up to Jesus eventually. So many things compete for our time and attention in this life. And what happens is that we allow these other things to delay us from following Jesus. We tell ourselves that we're not quitting on following Jesus. We tell ourselves that we're not going to allow this other thing to get in the way, and yet we do. This other important thing has to be dealt with right now. Jesus can wait till tomorrow. We'll do better tomorrow, right? Tomorrow we'll fully commit to following him. Tomorrow we can leave home and cross the sea, but we can't do it today. There's this pressing issue today. Do you know what the number one date or day is for starting a diet? Tomorrow. That's the number one day for starting it. Yeah, some say January 1st, it's the beginning of the year. Some say, well, I'll start on Monday. But number one is tomorrow. I will start it tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes, does it? Something always comes up. So what's important in your life? How do you spend your time? And we need to really consider this. Again, the season of Lent is about a true, honest evaluation of yourself. Other things are planned, and I have to attend to them. We say that, don't we? Well, this is already on the calendar. This is what I have to do instead. But what dictates what is more important? Seriously consider that. How do you define what's really important? I want you to really consider what it takes to be committed, really committed to something. On July 4th, 1776, kind of an important date, right? John Adams said in an address before the Continental Congress, he said, "Live or die, sink or swim, survive or perish. I am committed to this Declaration of Independence. I am committed, and if God wills it, I am ready to die that this nation may be free." Being a Christian is about accepting Christ into your heart. And that's relatively easy. Let me explain. But to be a disciple, that's something else. Being a disciple means being fully committed, putting everything else to the side, saying, no, Jesus is the most important thing. The question is asked sometimes, and John Adams even alluded to it, would I die for this? Would you die for Christ? You may have heard people being questioned that way, or you read stories about these martyrs. Are you willing to die for this? But I want to ask what excuse me. I want to ask what I think is a better question. Will you live for Christ? will you commit to being a true disciple? Because, let's be honest, who sets priorities? Who sets commitments in your life? You do. Nobody else does. Now you may say, well, my job does. You choose to follow that commitment from your job. We set priorities. We set commitments. We choose whether or not to do something. So, there are times I've heard people say, well, I can't do that. Sometimes it's completely and totally legitimate. But I also know that very often it's a choice. So if we're truly honest, we'll say, I choose not to do that. I am not committed enough to do that. And let's be honest, that's actually the best first step. Acknowledging that I'm choosing one thing over another. Pastor Marshall Shelley says, commitment is not simply a mental attitude. It's developing an ability to further the cause you're committed to. Now, being a disciple is not going to be easy. In fact, it's guaranteed not to be easy. It's not guaranteed to be fun. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be crazy. Your world is going to turn upside down. But let's be honest too, sometimes you have to tear down before you can build back up. It's going to have a better foundation. It's going to have a better structure. It's going to be better. It's not going to look like the old life. It's going to look like a better life. But the priorities are going to be different. It's not going to look the same as the world would consider it. But we have to commit to doing what we're called to do. Will you share the gospel message? Will you love others even if they don't look, think, or love like you? Will you show up to serve? Because, let's be honest, it's hard to serve if you don't show up. It's like, anybody ever gone to the gym and worked out, or even just worked out at home, or gone for a walk or something like that? What helps? Having somebody else beside you, encouraging you, and saying, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. I know it hurts, I know this sucks. You can do it, I promise. And they say, if you have a partner doing that, you're guaranteed to improve. As long as you're both committed to it. But sometimes it helps to have an illustration. Can I get a volunteer? I'll eventually need another one, but I need one volunteer right now. Don't everybody jump up at once. Come here, Jane. Thank you very much. Can you do me a favor? Can you turn that light on for me, please? Yeah. Go ahead. You got to flip the switch. Yeah. Anytime now, Jane. Go ahead and turn it on.
Well, I see the reason.
You said it's not plugged in. Well, okay. Just don't move the lamp or anything, but go ahead and plug it in. There's an outlet right here. Go ahead and plug that in.
That's not going to reach.
It's not going to reach? Oh. So you're saying you can't plug into the power. Uh-huh. Can I get another volunteer, please? This one's easy. Come here, Lori. You think you could help Jane there?
Well, sure.
All right. Like I said, we got an outlet right here. Go ahead and plug her in. See, there we go. Awesome. Thank you, ladies, very much. Yes. Thank you to our lovely assistants. So I will tell you, the lamp, it's a pretty lamp. Even when the light isn't on, it's a pretty lamp. But it really doesn't do the best it can until it's plugged in. And what did it take? Some assistance. It needed somebody along for the ride. Somebody to connect. Somebody to be a part of the situation. Somebody to be connected. So showing up to serve, to be connected. That includes Sunday morning worship, is vital as members of the discipleship. It's vital for us to show up and be connected. It's vital for us to walk and be committed together to what we are called to do. Proverbs that Lori read reminds us we need to sharpen ourselves with others to be the best we can. So, here's my challenge. It's a question. Here's the problem, though. It asks you to be honest with yourself. Sometimes that's probably the hardest person to be honest with, isn't it? So here's my challenge for you. Ask yourself honestly, am I really committed to being a disciple of Jesus Christ? Like I said, that's the first step. Asking that question. If you're not, okay, great. We have a starting point. We're honest. We know we need to go from here to there. What do we need to do next? If you're struggling with that, talk to me. I know there are a number of other pastors. There's a number of other people within our own church that will help you, lift you up, and walk you through that process. But stay showing up for Sunday morning, and we can talk about it then too. We can figure it out together. Not everybody is going to have the same design. Not everybody is going to be a disciple in the same way. And that's the wonderful thing. We don't want the same disciple over and over again. We want new disciples in different ways. But first, we have to figure out, are we committed or not? So, I will say during our final song, I want to open up the opportunity to come forward. It means you're acknowledging the action, that there's action that needs to take place in your life. We would call this an altar call. You don't have to come forward, but if you would like to come forward and pray, I will pray with you. I don't have to. You can bring up somebody else with you to pray. But I am going to continue to do this every Sunday of Lent. Lamentations 3:40 says, "Let us examine and probe our ways, and let us return to the Lord."